Welcome back, listeners, to CyberGPT Pulse podcast. Today, we will be again delving into cybersecurity and unraveling a few myths and shedding light on real world incidents that impact our digital life. I'm your host, Amaruddin Sayed.
Hey, I'm your co-host Muhammad Ilyas Ahmad. Welcome everyone. Today it's a big news, kind of 1 year achievement. So it's kind of 1 year anniversary of our Cyber GBT Pulse podcast. So it's hard to believe that we have been on this journey together for an entire year. Whether you have been with us since the very beginning or joined somewhere along the way, I just want to take a moment to say thank you for your incredible support, your feedback, and for tuning in week after week. And let's keep the momentum going. And once again, thank you for being a part of Cyber GBT Plus podcast. So now let's dive into the special anniversary episode we came up with. Today, we will be exploring a fascinating case. That highlights the vulnerability in supply chains and debunking some prevalent myths about remote attacks on devices like iPhones. So grab your headphones and let's dive in deep into it. Amir, so let's a quick question. Imagine ordering batch of devices for your organization, say pagers for secure communications. So you trust these devices will arrive untouched and ready to use, as we all know. So, but what if somewhere along the supply chain, someone intercepts and modifies them with malicious intent? So I know this is a hypothetical scenario. So I would like you to shed some light on this.
That's a trick question. So this isn't a hypothetical scenario, and this has actually happened. Some of you might have heard on the news of a prominent organization in Lebanon, Hezbollah, being reported, who actually has some incidents. So incidentally, the main thing happened with they they had a few incidents with some of the other agencies being intercepting their GPS and stuff. So they went back to the traditional norms and reportedly ordered some 5,000 pages from a manufacturer in Taiwan just to be off grid. But now Taiwan is known for producing a large proportion of world's advanced semiconductor from TSMC and other companies. So they actually own 90% of. In fact, these pager are very crucial, could be very crucial for their communication, and once they have been deployed on in their own network, they were actually extensively using it. So however, during the transit itself, spy agency allegedly intercepted the shipment. So the shipment interception was something like that. The company who was given the order, they outsource the uh, whole production to another company, and that company was owned by this agency. So they actually didn't just peek inside; they actually carefully tampered the device, and they actually changed one of the two identical AA batteries, which has been used by a pager, to replace it with a very small hidden explosive component. It's something related to TNT. So this modification was so discreet that the weight and balance was taken care of. So nothing goes out of place, and the inventory management uh, doesn't notice this upon delivery. So this, you can think of this sophistication required for such a operation, that they not only have the invoice and delivery management done with the whole inventory, as well as they also had the engineer with the knowledge of explosive device that can mimic the size and weight and appearance of the double A battery. So, and also there was also some unconfirmed news that it was added with some timers. So this just went on with thousands of units without any suspicion. So the consequences were severe. Many of the members, as well as few civilians, were injured, and this has instant fear in their organization, as well as with the civil population, that this is an alarming situation, which where a pager can be detonated in a public place. And so So this is a real world scenario case which underscored critical point of supply chain vulnerability being a very genuine case, not just for threat modeling scenarios. And when we talk about cybersecurity, we often just focus on software and malware, viruses, phishing attacks. So now the hardware component is also very interesting to see. So yeah, Elias, so do you have any contrasting stuff which you have been hearing about this news, which might not be that true?
Sure, there absolutely. Why not? So, if we contrast this, some of the myths circulating out there, specifically the idea of remote attacks causing devices like iPhones to explode. So, you have probably seen sensational headlines or social media posts claiming the hackers can remotely cause your smartphone to overheat and explode just by sending a malicious piece of message or through some remote exploit, technique. So if we go ahead and unpack that, so the modern smartphones, including iPhones, are designed with numerous safety features to prevent overheating and physical damage. And batteries have protection circuits, and the operating system monitors temperatures. So shutting down the device if it gets too hot, perfect. But then from a technical standpoint, um, uh, like you know while it's theoretically possible to exploit software vulnerabilities to cause a device to malfunction or crash, but then causing a battery to explode remotely is extremely implausible. The hardware safeguards are specifically engineered in such a way to prevent such catastrophic failures, even in the event of software issues. So in this case, the tampered pages that got exploded was physically implanted into the device. It wasn't a remote attack, it was a deliberate hands on modification of the hardware during the transit. So, so why it is important to distinguish between these real threats and myths? So, believing an exaggerated or false threats can divert attention and resources away from addressing genuine vulnerabilities. So we know like if there is a legacy technology vulnerability in pager system. So when you have an outdated communication protocol, so many pagers network rely on older unsecured communications in the first place. So protocols such as POC SAG, like Post Office Code Standardization Advisory Group, or Flex. This sort of protocols we use like in the pager. So these protocols were designed in an era where cybersecurity was not a primary concern. So meaning they lack robust encryption standards, authentication standards seen in modern communication. So this makes it easier for attackers to intercept and even replay messages using simple radio equipments. So no need of heavy like more engineered equipments. So without the need for sophisticated hacking tools. And then coming to the lack of encryption. So the vast majority of legacy pager systems either use weak encryption or transmit messages between plain text. So when coming to the vulnerability, which that allows attackers to listen, sensitive communications by tuning into specific radio frequency used by pagers. So I would say in a supply chain context, this could expose information like delivery schedules, warehouse locations, or operational instructions too. So in that way, then hacker could easily manipulate this information to disrupt operations or engage in industrial espionage. Um, and then the wide open transmission, for example, let's say the pager typically operates using unidirectional wide area broadcast signals. So while this makes them reliable over long distances and in areas with a poor cellular coverage, it also means that anyone with the right equipment can easily pick up the transmission. But then without the proper authentication or access control, anyone with a basic radio receiver can capture pager messages too. So compromising the confidentiality of the information is being shared. So that's another vulnerability. And then coming to the authentication mechanism, since like many of the older pager systems, um, don't require sender or receiver authentication. It's kind of like there's no way to verify the legitimacy of the source sending a message. But nowadays we have lot of legitimacy like TCP, UDP protocols we use based on requirement. But then this lack of authentication makes it possible for attackers to inject false information into the pager network, potentially cause confusion and disruption. And The whole topic boils down to dependency on insecure infrastructure. So infrastructure supporting pager networks like signal tower transmitters, often older and may adhere to modern cybersecurity. But then here there's a whole case. We are seeing the whole scenario in a different picture here. So for intercepting the messages, false messages, spoofing, and the legacy systems. So these are kind of like, reputational damage and compromised system reflect poorly on organization ability to secure its operation. But then, as we see the news, like, there's some kind of thing like that got we that they have implanted something in the pagers that got exploded.
Yep, so that's a good pivot there. So although the current attack which we are discussing is not actually a software vulnerability leading into it, but it can be, it actually was an infrastructure vulnerability and incidentally the inventory management vulnerability, specifically supply chain. But supply chain software security kind of, we can think about that any vulnerability in the supply chain can lead into having a vulnerable attack into your software as well. So in and that point of view, the organization need to have end-to-end monitoring of the of shipment, as well as using, as you have covered, that using tamper evident packaging, with inspection of the receiving of hardware, as well as the outsource companies need to be also cross check, and there should be some validation of those stuff. So that's need to be, of course, be the one of the thing which we need to learn. And secondly, from this totally a sensational point of view, there is there we should have a skeptic approach to just see these claims as if it is possible or not, with the realistic capability and limitation of a potential attacker. As any in any threat modeling, we do also have a capability of attacker as a metric, and that need to be also that in this case capability of attacker, just from technical point of view, is was not that high. It was on the medium level from my point of view, just to have the identification of the size and the weight of lithium battery, and then replacing the explosive material with that. It was more about the intelligence mechanism which was used to infiltrate the supply chain inventory management, then not about the technical expertise to how to do that. So it can be also so as with the remote attack you have also already covered. This was not actually a remote attack. It was a uh, time-based trigger which was already planted. So this was a kind of a physical attack in per se of cybersecurity. With the physical security, we have to deal these vulnerabilities in our physical security aspect. And with the major organization having their data center and offices, as well as company manufacturing units, they do usually uh, have the physical security aspect just to have more authenticated entries and exit endpoints which need to be covered. But sometimes the inventory stuff, how the order is coming on, who is actually, if the authenticated vendor is there, the vendor analysis need to be also covering for the reputation as well as recognition of the vendor. So yeah, that's need to be also taken care. Although in case of a legacy technology like pager or walkie talkie, there are very limited suppliers. So of course you will go with the limited supplier, available supplier, whoever is giving you the supply. And in case of these terrorist organization, they didn't have that much of choice. So of course those were the uh, those were the this is a edge issue which was exploited. But with the major organizations, of course the education is key to have information that not just software security in the supply chain need to be covered, but you have to have the check and the end-to-end security for hardware components, the suppliers who are actually deploying the components, be it your chips, be it your resistors and transistors, as well as the battery power. So you have to identify the sensitive or the critical assets which which can lead into some damage scenario. So that damage scenario can be it, we can be given a much higher priority. Even for my own experience, I've seen in manufacturing that yeah, we do have these damage scenarios, and yeah, okay, in the field there can be a missile attack, there can be a war scenario, but more often than not, it's usually a fun bit which been whenever security is talking about product image and or other team are more excited to hear about them and the high unlikely possibility of these things. But this case actually gives you additional capability that yeah, this can actually happen, and in major in the major corporation as well. And for in a cyber warfare, this can be used to uh, exploit as well as pivot. As we can say in the cybersecurity, that lateral pivot can be done. So those lateral entries can be on supply chain as well, not in on the software world.
Yeah. Luckily, we don't use pages here. We are in a in a
Yeah.
good shape.
Yeah,
So yeah,
not even in the hospitals it is being used. In
exactly.
yeah, in Lebanon actually hospitals were still using, but I checked with my couple of friends that no, we are not in US hospitals doesn't use any pages.
Exactly. So I think even though pages are being used by, when we are on call, like kind of thing, we use an application for pagers, but not actual pager we use it,
Yeah,
right? So
yeah,
that's kind of like, slowly transitioning from the old era of technology to a new era. But
mm,
luckily we are in the new era. But yeah, I really know the people who, like, who families, like, who have lost their lives. I'm like, I really, like, my heart goes out there. But then, yeah. So yeah, listeners. So lastly, education is key, as you all know. So by staying informed about how actual attack occurred, so we can better protect ourselves and focus on mitigating real risk rather than chasing shadows. So that's a wrap up today's episode of Cyber GPT Pulse. So we explored how a spy agency exploited supply chain vulnerabilities to compromise devices physically, and debunked myths about remote attacks causing devices like iPhones to explode. So remember, the cybersecurity isn't just about what's happening uh, in the digital realm. It's also about safeguarding the physical components that makes our technology work. So if you found today's discussion enlightening, so please subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring more insightful content to you. So stay safe out there, and until next time, protect your digital asset.
yeah. We will hearing your comments and your in future recommendation for what kind of videos you want to see, and we have some other plans as well which we will be formulating and letting our audience as we go on. And yeah, so there, as you have been seeing that there have been more shorts and other videos coming around with specific topics. So do feel free to comment as well as give your reviews, what kind of topics you want to see, and further subscribe. Of course, do subscribe and like that give us encouragement to go on. And yeah, thanks for the continuous support for from the last year. We will be continue our endeavor further. Thank you.